3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Welcome to Lighthouse Live with Jordan Devitt, the show where we give God the glory from this generation to the next. And now, to your host, Jordan Devitt.
Good morning and welcome back to Lighthouse Live. I'm your host, Jordan Devitt, and listen, I'm so excited that you have joined me today. Before I do anything and say anything else, I want to thank Bishop Dan and Pastor Garland for allowing this ministry to be possible. I'm so grateful for all that you do, and I love you both very much. I also want to ask you this morning that you would share this broadcast and help support the ministry in making lives be reached for Jesus Christ's kingdom. We believe that this message will touch people's lives and change them for the better. So today I'm excited to talk to you all about God will use whatever means necessary for his purpose to be accomplished. You see, God will use the wicked to bless the righteous. God will use unlikely candidates to do the miraculous. God has no care for the way in which his purpose is accomplished. All that matters is he gets through what he needs to. There are numerous accounts in the Bible where this took place. And it's important for us to understand that God will use odd situations. God will use unlikely candidates because God will do whatever he has to make sure his kingdom mission is accomplished. And I really believe that this is something that is so vital for you and I to understand today so that we can see how God's kingdom really does function and work and how God don't really care too much how things take place, but that they take place. And so my first point is this: God's correction hurts, and he will use anyone or anything for it to take place. See, in the book of Ezekiel, God had to correct the Israelites, and there was sin and wickedness that these people were committing against God. Israel gets completely broken down. God takes away everything from them. He exiles them to live under Babylonian captivity, destroys the temple, the whole 9 yards, working and slaving for them. You see, a problem today is this, and this happens very often. We hear the warning. You know, back in those days in the Old Testament had prophets. Prophets were really the main voice of God that people were able to hear. And these prophets would come and they would warn the cities, they would warn Israel, they would say, turn away from the wickedness, turn away, repent, turn around, your ways are wrong, guys. We've got to get back to God. We've got to get back to the ways of living in righteousness under God's hand. We've got to live the way in reverence towards God. And the sad truth was most of the time, the Israelites never turned around. They didn't, or they turned around for a moment. And so because of those things, God had to judge the people. God gave the warning, but the people didn't listen. They continued on in their sin. They laughed. They scoffed at what the prophet's words were. Due to this, God corrected. And when God corrected, it wasn't just a pat on the back. There was severe correction. People weren't just going to lose a little bit. They lost everything. They lost their wealth. They lost family at times, their freedom, their health. You name it, they lost it. Because they started living under the curse of sin. It's just the truth. I want to tell you all this morning, stop letting God have to correct you personally. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to hurt you severely. He doesn't want you to have to go through all those things. But the truth is this: you cannot fool God. We can't. You can fool man. Happens all the time. Many men are hiding underneath masks, fooling other men for who they are and what they are. But you can't fool God. God sees heart. He sees the intention. He sees where you're at. And so what I want you all to know is this. God is not that way. He sees it all. And so we have to remember that in all of this, take the rebuke, even when it doesn't feel good, and change your ways. Otherwise, God will use whatever means necessary to get his purpose accomplished. And in this case, in the book of Ezekiel, he used Babylon. Now, I want to remind you all that Babylon was wicked themselves. And it seems kind of funny and ironic that God would use a wicked group of people to judge another wicked group of people. Right? And in that state, Israel was wicked. They were being wicked. So God used Babylon to destroy Israel because of their wickedness. But it was wicked judging wicked by the hand of God. God was allowing it to happen. A lot of times people say, well, why is this happening to me? Why is God allowing this situation? Why is God allowing this? What did I do? Look at your life. Look at your lifestyle. You see, a lot of times we think, this happened because of, God just, no. I want you to remember that God does actually judge out of wickedness that is taking place in people's lives. God judges sin. The day of judgment is going to be hard because God judges sin. God is righteous. That day is going to be a dark day for many people because God judges wickedness. And for Israel, God judged the wickedness that they were living with. You see, God will use whatever means necessary for his purpose to be accomplished as long as he can get our attention. God didn't do it because he wanted people to completely just have to suffer, but he does it because he wants us to get our attention. The truth of the matter is, when all things are going well, humanity, they don't change. They will not change. They will not turn around. They will not. Until they understand their ways ain't working. That's why a lot of times people who are prideful, God tries to reach them, they don't get reached. Because those people who are prideful, they think they know everything. They think that they can do everything. They think they've got it all together. Well, the truth is, how is God going to reach them if they think they have everything together? That's why God breaks us down. He breaks down the pride. He takes everything away. Because when you got nothing, I'll tell you what, a lot of people will cry out to God. A lot of people will cry out to God when they're sick. A lot of people will cry out to God when they've got nothing. A lot of people will cry out to God when there's calamity that strikes. That's why the Bible says, in my affliction, I sought the Lord. David wrote that. David knows the best, that he had some affliction. And so, I want you to know this morning that God will use wickedness from people because he needs his purpose to be accomplished. Don't ever think that certain things are so far-fetched. Don't think, well, why are they prospering or why is this happening? God has it all in a beautiful plan and design. And the only purpose is this, that God's purpose would be accomplished, honestly. And for us, in the good and the bad, we want to be able to serve God and reverence him. And just know that if God comes and corrects, it will not feel great. But it's all for the purpose that God would have you be restored back to him and have your eyes focused back to him. That's the only purpose. His purpose is that you would be restored back to him. And there's nothing more beautiful than that. That's where the true blessing is. Now, number 2 is this: God uses the wicked to bless the righteous. Genesis 45, 4-8 says this: Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come close to me." When they had done so, he said, "I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed, and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God had sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now, there has been famine in the land, and for the next 5 years, there will be no plowing and reaping. But God has sent me ahead of you to preserve you, a remnant on earth, to save your lives by a great deliverance. So then it was not you who sent me here, but God, who made me father to Pharaoh, Lord of his entire household and ruler of all of Egypt. You see, we all know the story of Joseph. Joseph was hated by his family. God gave him dreams that he was going to excel far beyond his family, far beyond many people, that he was really going to be a mighty man of God. And as he said these dreams, his family hated him, persecuted him. They actually ganged up on him and sold him into slavery. What they didn't realize is that God was using their wicked hearts to actually be a blessing to his life. Many times in life, you wonder why things take place and why wicked people are hurting you so much. Because in the end, you don't realize that God is about to put you in charge of many people's lives. God is about to elevate you to a place where you have authority and leadership that without going through those times of wicked people hurting you so badly, you would not be able to be the leader that you are today. You would not be able to be the man or woman of God that you are today. And so this morning, I want you to remember that God is always in the midst of what is taking place in your life. And a lot of times, there will be wicked who bless righteous. There will be wicked who help the righteous. There will be wicked who do things that you don't understand, but God knows. God took Pharaoh, and he brought Joseph to be second in command. Pharaoh was wicked. Egypt was wicked, and God still used them. Because God does not care what it is that he has to use in order for his purpose to be accomplished. Don't you see that in the word as I'm preaching this morning? Don't you see? God doesn't care. God will use whatever means possible for your life. Even if it's unlikely candidates, even if it's unusual, even if it seems weird or odd, God will use it. Don't be mistaken. God will use it. He'll use whatever so that his purpose be accomplished. You see, point 3 is this. Whether we realize this or not, wicked actually still have a level of reverence for the Lord. You would actually be surprised by wicked, awful people. Although they're doing things wrong, and I completely do not condone it, they have a reverence to God. They have a reverence for even God's people, his things, his purpose, his will. And they help the purpose of God a lot in situations. You know, you see there's a lot of wicked people who sow more than the righteous who are living right. I mean, they sow, they give, tithe, which is so crazy, but they have somewhere in their heart where they have reverence to God. Somewhere in them. That's why there's a lot of people where, you know, they may be completely wicked. They'll walk around you, they'll stop cussing, or they'll stop talking profane. They'll start, you know, how can I help you? I know one of the most famous YouTubers actually in the world right now, he actually offered to buy all of the camera equipment, give all this camera equipment up to one of the most famous televangelists in the world, saying how could he help him? It doesn't make sense, right? Yet God uses this. And I want to tell you this morning, hey, when God says it's okay and you feel peace on it, let them. If they want to say, hey, I want to help your kingdom and your ministry, let them. Preach the gospel to them. Because you never know. Their heart can change. Joshua 2:8 says it like this. Beautiful depiction. Before the men lay down, she came up to them on the roof and said to the men, I know the Lord has given you the land, and the fear of you has fallen upon us. And all the inhabitants of the land melt away before you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea before you when you came out of Egypt. What you did to the 2 kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon and Og, whom you devoted to destruction. And as soon as we heard it, our hearts melted, and there was no spirit left in any man because of you. For the Lord your God, he is in the heavens above and on the earth beneath. Now then, please swear to me by the Lord that as I have dealt kindly with you, you also would deal kindly with me. The Lord has dealt with you kindly and dealt kindly with your father's house. And give me a sure sign that you will save alive my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them, and deliver our lives from death. Now, this was Rahab speaking to some of the people who were actually getting ready. They were men of God who were getting ready to destroy this particular land. And Rahab, as you could see, was really pleading with the men, hey, I reverence your God. Rahab was a prostitute, though. No matter what we think, God will use whatever means. God will use whatever he has to for his purpose to be accomplished. Wicked people have somewhere in their hearts a level of reverence to the Lord. They just do. And tap into it. Pull out of them what God has really called them to be. Don't be so ashamed or afraid or wondering, why is God allowing this to happen? Why is God using these people? Don't be so shocked or taken aback. And Rahab's life was a great example of this. Rahab was unlikely, but God uses the unlikely. God takes the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. He takes the weak things of the world to shame the strong. Today, maybe you are in a situation where you don't get it. Maybe people who you thought were going to help you didn't help you. Maybe they were people of God and they didn't help you. Listen, I've been there, and it doesn't make sense sometimes, but trust and know that God will still get his mission and his purpose accomplished for your life. He'll still take care of you. He'll still bring you to where you're supposed to go. He will do all that he has to do for his purpose to be accomplished. 4 years ago, actually, I was getting ready to go to college. And the university that I wanted to go to was a small Christian school. My whole life, I wanted to go to a Christian university. I'm telling you, it was my passion, my desire. All I could think about was going to a Christian university. I loved the Lord. I wanted to be in his kingdom. I wanted to be with his people. I wanted to hear the word preached. That was just where I was at. I visited so many Christian universities, stayed overnight, the whole 9 yards, went and really wanted to be at a Christian university. That was my goal. And I finally had gotten actually into a Christian university. And I ended up having so much just things that seemed like going very well, scholarships and whatnot. Yet it was a very expensive university. And so I got in and I was on this program and I missed this orientation. And it was my fault, completely my fault. And I ended up getting sent an email one day when I was actually at work, and it said, unfortunately, you will not be able to attend blank university this year because you are on probation for missing this orientation. I freaked out. It didn't make sense. This is all I ever dreamed of. This is all I ever wanted. This was my goal. And this was 2 weeks before school was about to start. It was about August of 2018. I freaked out, called the school. I said, could we have a meeting? Could we talk about this? What can I do? And they said, yeah, I have a meeting. I go into the board room with all of the basically main people of this university. And so we open up in prayer, and it's just me and all these people who are, the top dogs, I guess, of this university. And I'm like, hey guys, I really want to go to this school. And the leader of the program said, listen, you will not be attending this school no matter what. And my heart broke because I thought that out of all people, it would be the Christian university that was going to take care of me. I thought it would be the Christian university that was going to help me. I thought it was going to be the Christian university that would be the place that would take me to my next step in life. And the truth was, they didn't. They couldn't. And I had messed up and I had done wrong, and I thought that, wow, that's it. But I kept going, and I ended up getting a secular education at a community college, and it was completely free. I have not $1 of student debt, not $1. All the things that I needed to take place took place. The school treated me great, and it was still a blessing. And the reason I tell you this all is because I want you to know that although I didn't get to end up go to this university that I thought was for me, God still made it all work out. I finished my degree. I kept the faith. I continued walking the path that God wanted me to walk. And in the end, all the things worked out. And I want you to know this. In your life today, it may look so bizarre, but believe that God is going to still work it out. Maybe the people you thought who were going to be there weren't there. And I'm not saying not to have faith in them. Have faith in them. Believe in them. Want and have desires to do what is in your heart and what God is showing you. But sometimes God knows what's better for us. And God will use whatever means necessary that his purpose be accomplished in your life. As I go through these points very briefly so that you would remember them, remember this. God will use whatever means necessary. It doesn't matter what it is. For me, he used a different school. It didn't make sense in the moment, but now I see I'm debt-free. I probably would have some debt if I went to a private Christian university where I would have had to pay a lot more out of pocket. But God knew what he was doing. God knows what he's doing for you today. He knows. Even when it doesn't seem like, he still knows. Number 2 is this. Take God's instruction, his corrections, and receive it. And don't be surprised if it's people that aren't maybe even believers that God has to use to correct. Listen, receive the first warning and just take it. Take it, swallow the pill, and turn around. But in that, remember, God can use anyone. God can use anything. For Israel, he used Babylon. Babylon wasn't any better. It doesn't really make complete sense, except for the fact that God just needs his purpose to be accomplished. Number 2 is this, or 3. God uses the wicked to bless the righteous. He used Joseph's brothers, who were being wicked in heart, to bless Joseph, to be able to be the leader over Egypt and be second in command. He used Pharaoh to elevate him. Whether we understand it, here it is. God did that. Not only that, God used Rahab, a prostitute, to help God's people to spy out this land and to help them to overcome. And on top of this all, those people actually were reverencing God. And there are going to be people in your life who they may not be living right, but don't wonder why they are acting the way they are towards you. I'll tell you why. Because they reverence the Lord. Even in the state that they're at, they reverence God. People know God is real deep in their hearts. They know God is real. They're actually afraid of God. Rahab was afraid of God. There are people who come by you and they're afraid of God. Understand that God will do whatever he has to for his purpose to be accomplished in your life. Let me say a quick prayer. Father, I thank you for today. I pray that you would bless your people, help them to understand whatever means necessary you will use for your purpose to be accomplished. I pray everyone would have an amazing day. I love you all so much, and until next time, have a wonderful, blessed Sunday morning. God bless you all.
Get your new book from Pastor Dan Willis, The Multicultural Church, Embracing Unity and Restoration. For over 40 years, Pastor Dan Willis has led a growing multicultural church community in the suburbs of Chicago. His insight, wisdom, and overall love for people are sure to bless and empower your ministry. Order your copy of The Multicultural Church, Embracing Unity and Restoration today. Log on to www.danwillis.org today and take your ministry to the next level.